So welcome to today's talk at the WA Museum Boola Bardip. This is the artist talk for the behind the scenes look into the upcoming Cosmology Concert. And what I'm going to be doing today is sharing a little bit of how the music came about, how the great astrophotography imaging that we're having with the show came about. Because it's a whole process. It was an idea that came from somewhere, like all ideas. And I think that's an interesting angle, because if you think about space, the show is called Cosmology. It's about the entire life of the cosmos and our place in it. Think about our daily lives. We think about space as being something in a room or in a city, or maybe between nations, or maybe around the world. But that's about it. Sky above is a bit of an extension of that. But most of the time our idea of space is very, very small and very, very limited. And what I wanted to get across with this show was the whole idea that we tend to look out at the night sky, for instance, where we have if you get a clear night, you can look out and you can see the galaxy above, all the stars. And we kind of look up and then we go back to our lives as if we're somewhere solid, like a viewing platform, and space is out there. You know, that it's something that we're not really part of. We're looking out, like we're looking through a window. You know, it's like being in a ship and looking out the window and seeing the ocean. We're looking out the window, if you like, to space. But the perspective that I want to bring with this show is we are a planet. We're on a planet orbiting around a sun, around a star. So all those stars, that could be our sun, and we're just one little planet orbiting around that. So I wanted to get a way, to find a way to really convey that with this show through the narration, through the music, and also through the beautiful images of the astrophotography. So the complexity of it for humans is we're dealing with something, existence, space, and the vast age of the universe and the galaxies that it contains. It's actually without beginning and without end, and that's a concept that's so outside our box. It's pretty hard for our brain to get a handle on that. But what we're actually dealing with is space and time, which has no beginning and no end, literally. And I think part of us sort of goes, well, there must have been a beginning and there must be an end. And this is where we depart from that, because we're faced with something which really has no beginning and no end in the vast cosmos. And so I wanted to present that perspective, which I do through narration in the show. Also, how do we relate that through music? How do we create music to take us on that journey as well, to sort of it's like our magic carpet that we're going through the cosmos on. And there's a few really nice things that I like to use in this show to do that. And one is where we have very slow drone figures. So we might have something I think one of the things about that kind of that kind of motif is that it has no beginning and end. So I think it naturally lends itself to conveying that feeling of things just going on forever, all of time, beyond time. And then we've got the question of, well, how do we make that a little bit more engaging in a way that doesn't conflict with that idea of things going on forever? And I've chosen a few different modalities of music to use, and the main one is some really interesting combinations of notes, which we call scales. So I'll put that drone back on, which I'm using on my loop pedal here. So I'm often using figures like that where they're like an ornamental rather than a big melody. You know, if it was a movie, we'd have to come up with a theme. It's sort of theme music. But as it is, it's not a movie. It's a whole story unfolding. And so I like the way that we can have that drone there to convey that limitless, that absolutely forever, no beginning and no end of the universe, of the cosmos. And within that, we can give it specificity, we can give it sparks of light, we can give it people's existence. And so what happens is that by using those simple notes, more in an ornamental way rather than a kind of here's a big melody you can hum in the car, I think it really lends itself much better to the nature of what the subject, which is the cosmos. So we've got this infinite space, but within that infinite space we have stars, suns, we have stars, we have whole galaxies, we have solar systems within that around those stars, often with planets or fragments of matter circling them. And so this is one of the building blocks for this the music for this show. And so it's in this more ornamental kind of like fragments of light. So I'll put that all together again for you. So here's the drone of forever space. And then one of the other things that I like to do in conveying that idea of, you know, the emergence of stars and galaxies and solar systems, planets, is to start to bring in a lot of little sounds as well. So part of that is to use some of the interesting sounds that you can get non-conventionally on a violin. So I'm using, just turn this up a little bit here. I'm using the bow backwards for this. So again, it's like little sparks of light. So if we put that together, you end up with the drone. So these are just some of the, I guess, the musical effects, the sort of sounds that will be in the show as part of the way to convey that cosmological picture. But of course, the narration is a big part of it as well, and being able to contextualise our place, even sitting here. We're in the show, the Cosmology Concert, being able to contextualise that what we're really doing is we're starting to contemplate something completely outside our own daily experience, so really outside our whole lifetime experience. Cosmos, no beginning, no end, literally, not just metaphorically. No beginning, no end. And I think that's a wonderful place to start. And then the journey is about the formation of the universe and the galaxies spiraling around, made out of billions of suns, stars themselves, and the possibility that within those galaxies there's some of those suns might have their own little solar system, and then that solar system is, in our case, there's a bunch of planets that created these extraordinary sequences of interference with the original rock idea of the formation of a planet some 4.5 billion years ago. And then the way that that evolved into life forms, and we know that a lot of the life form material was already implicit in the rock, but there's other aspects which become injected into that through meteorites striking the Earth, entering the Earth's atmosphere, and bringing the basis of, in fact, things as complex as DNA. So, again, this is partly through the narration. We look at the human history, how the evolution of various species came to be, and then there was human history, and then the concept that humans have moved from being part of the cosmos, where they're part of the Earth, they're part of the solar system, they're part of the galaxy, they're part of the universe, part of the cosmos. That cosmological life and all the cycles, the stars and the suns and the setting of the sun, as we call it, and the rising of the sun as we circle around it. All of these things were actually what we navigate our life from. In other words, humanity used to be observers of all these aspects of life, and now what we find is that with our modern age, with so much technology where we can effectively control the climate with our air conditioning, if it's hot we can have it cold, if it's cold we can have it hot. We're living beyond the means of any other time in history, and we have our mobile phone screens and our computers and our virtual realities. And what's really coming out of all that is that we don't look up anymore. We don't look at the night sky, we don't observe it, and we don't allow ourselves to be affected by the night sky in this way. And so one of the ways that I convey that is through the sound and the narration, but we'll also have a huge screen behind me on the stage with some of the really great astrophotographers in Australia, with footage from mostly around Western Australia, but also different parts of the globe, where we have actual images of looking into space, admittedly from Earth, but we are looking up into those star systems. We are looking up into those galactic formations and those constellations. And I hope that with this show, what happens is that the experience is that we start to become less self-centric in our view of not only our place in the universe, but our place in life. Because I don't think you can really succeed in doing that in one area without really embracing it in the other. So I'm hoping that through giving people an old perspective, restoring the old perspective of our significance and our place in a whole cosmological, scientifically described existence, that we end up with a refreshed sense of the whole sense of the planet, its place in the solar system, place in the galaxy, place in the universe, place in the cosmos, because this is what actually moves our hearts. And I know we're quite enthralled with our technology and the screens on our phones and things where we spend most of our day, but actually none of that refreshes the soul. None of that refreshes our heart and soul. So this is another window into, I would call it the old world. You've got to understand that life as we know it on Earth, again, we're terribly self-centric. We're terribly time-centric in a sense of now, contemporary-centric, because even the Earth as we know it, it hasn't existed that long. It's 4.5 billion years old, but there have been versions of the Earth's surface through enormous upheavals, seismic upheavals, through volcanic activity, through massive displacements and rearrangements of the water bodies on the Earth, times where most of the Earth has been actually underwater. And many places, even in Australia here, if we go out into the desert, out into the plains in the middle of the continent, we find deposits of seashells. It was a seabed, so this idea that there's these continents as we know them and all these nations, that's just a blinking of the eye in the whole journey of even just considering the Earth's history. So what we end up with is a replugging into the actual Earth history, which is the fact that we've had 90 extinction events in the last 4.5 billion years on the planet. That means not only climate changes from complete carbon dioxide systems through to oxygenated systems, and each one of those was a traumatic event in its transition that ended those life forms that were dependent on that system, and then gave rise to new life forms that could exist in the new system. So it's such a fascinating history, and to remind people of that our history goes back. We look at what we call ancient history, back around 3000 BC, maybe to 10,000 BC, getting towards the end of the last ice age. We've had lots of ice ages. Again, they've changed the face of the Earth. They've completely changed what vegetation, what landforms, where the seas were, where the continents were. And with that, what we're looking at is that going back prehistory, before the ice ages that we know about, we don't even know what happened. We can find some archaeological deposits that give us an idea. Maybe sometimes we find artifacts from 35,000 years ago of human hand. But beyond that, going back a couple of 100,000 years, 500,000 years, 1 million years, 2 million years, talking about billions of years. Remember, the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. So what we're really doing is contextualizing that, and how the landscape of the Earth and the Earth as we know it is only a fragment of existence, a fragment of time, and it will change again. We're not in a position to halt those changes. So it's an enormous challenge to our whole concept of our own advancement and our own knowledge, and this is what we call science, that we call the branches of science that we trust. The view of the world, if you look in magazines and on movies, it's very much concentric around what we know now. And if you've looked at any of the documentaries of the ancient civilizations and studies of what the landforms were like pre what we know now, where land was undersea and what's now undersea was landforms. And of course there's even human artifacts where there have been ancient buildings, stone buildings that are now submerged 30 metres or 50 metres under the ocean. So everything's changed and everything will be changing. So with the music, what I'm endeavouring to do is to paint a bit of a picture that matches, complements, and has a dialogue with the huge screen of the astrophotography images. And it's been put together with my partner in this show, Dr. John Goldsmith. So we've got some terrific input from himself and his astrophotographer colleagues, and with the narration of the story of all this and the science and the artistic part of how the music relates with that. It all comes together in this, wonderful big event, the Cosmology Concert. So I'll finish up just playing some more music for a couple of minutes. We'll go back to our idea of some sort of a drone. I'll do a different one. Just get this going with the technology. So in this way, how do you convey forever? How do you convey something of that expanse? And I think these slow, very spacious ways of arranging the artistic material, including the astrophotography and the voice narration at a pace of delivery and also a pace of ideas, they're all considerations putting together a multimedia show like this. And I think the main thing is to keep it that you can really feel you can really feel what's being explored and shared and put forward, not just mental information. I think it's important as an artist to the people who come to give up their time to come to the concert, to the event, can actually come away feeling refreshed by it. They can feel reconnected. It's not just an idea. And I think the music's a great vehicle for that. But I think having lots of space in the sound, in the music, very slow moving, can help with that enormously. It's not all like that, of course. There's some more dramatic sections, but the idea is that there's that these things complement that experience for everyone who's come to watch the show. Thanks very much for coming, and look forward to seeing you at the Cosmology Concert. Get the tickets on Ticketek, of course, and if you have any questions, you can always contact the museum, the WA Museum here in Perth, Boola Bardip, and look forward to seeing you at the show. Thank you.